Hello. Last time we were working on a chatbot that is able to identify the cause why our customer dogs are scratching more and more. And our chatbot also was able to provide the next steps the customer needs to take in order to remove this issue and to have their dogs happy and stop scratching. Now, from last time, we noticed that we are starting getting more and more customer support requests regarding the dogs who are vomiting. So we need to implement this new case, as we see from our wonderful diagram. We have a new customer intent, and everything else is the same, answering questions, showing probable cause why this is happening and next steps to take. And we have a new set of questions, new set of outcomes, and our question answer matrix. So now we will try to implement this additional functionality. So the very first thing that we notice is that if we want to implement this new set of questions, it becomes quite troublesome, and at some point it will become unsustainable because each time we will add a new question set, we will have to copy, duplicate this set of blocks, questions, with all the connections and outcomes and so on. So at some point it becomes unsustainable. And there is a better solution to do that. It will require a lot less work, and we will try to implement it now. So the first thing that we will do, we will completely delete what we had before. So all the questions, all the answers to those questions need to go. So that's done. It's gone. So the next thing that we will do is we will be cleaning the variables, as we no longer need so many of them. So let's keep it clean. And one of the things that we need to do now is to add a new set of variables. So one of the things that we will need to have is a variable called questionnaire that will contain all the questions and possible outcomes. The other one will be the outcome for the question set. The other will be a question. Basically, it will contain a current question that we need to ask a customer and the answer in which we will save the customer's answer. So now we have some new variables to work with. The next thing that we will do will be building all the solution in a bit simpler way, but at the same time, it will require some JavaScript programming knowledge. So let's start. So the first thing that we will want to do is to add a new JavaScript step. And in this step, we will define the question set with the answer. So in this case, as we are going to be asking questions about the dogs scratching, we'll paste it here. Already have prepared this, and I'll explain what we have in here. So this is the questionnaire. It's a grouped set of questions with possible outcomes. We have the answers that the customer provided for each question. We have the question index. So at the beginning, it will be -1. So we would know that a customer haven't answered any questions in this question set. And each time a customer answers a question, we will update this question index. You will see it later. And obviously we have a list of questions, a list of possible outcomes. And here we have a question. So each of those questions have actual question that we need to ask and the bit position. Later on, I'll explain what it means, but basically by answering the question, you will end up with the final answers value that will look like something like this or this. And basically from this value, you can understand that, okay, the first question was answered positively, second was positive, third was negative, fourth was negative, and so on. So in here, you can actually tell like how the questions need to be answered so that we could provide this outcome for our customer. We will also add a new intent. Okay, so we have enough utterances for this intent to be excellent, let's say. So create this intent. Now we have this for dog who's scratching. We need another JavaScript step for the dogs who are vomiting. And let's add the questions. So the structure is basically the same as for the dogs who are scratching for that question set. Structure is the same. Number of questions can be the same. It can be bigger. It can be less. It doesn't matter. The same with the number of outcomes. And all of those questions are the same ones we have in here. The outcomes also the same. And we could also look at, for example, these answers. We could see that for the first possible outcome, we have like 4 questions, first 4 questions, which were answered negatively. And we can see like 1, 2, 3, 4 negative ones. Then we have positive and also 2 negatives. And we can see, yes, next is the positive and 2 negatives. So we read the answer values from the right to left. So the first number on the right is for the first question, and the last number is for the first number on the left is for the last question. And the same goes for all of these other outcomes. Now, so we already have questions and possible outcomes, possible solutions for the issue. The next thing that we will need to do is have a functionality that is actually able to ask these questions and provide the solutions. And for that, we will build a same functionality that can work with any kind of number of questions from different sets with any kind of number of possible outcomes. So let's try to build this one. So for that, we will also need another JavaScript. code. We will have two paths for here. One is ask question, and the other will be show solution. So as you can see, we have two new possible outcomes, and for the show solution, we will be just outputting the solution, and the solution will be saved in the variable that is called outcome. And we will display it. And once the outcome has been displayed, we will ask if a customer has any more questions or he needs any other help with anything. Now, for the question part, we will be showing the question. The question will be saved in the question variable. We just need to display it. And also we need to collect an answer. So for our answers, like in the past, we will have yes and no. We will attach set variable action to them. So for yes will be true, and it will be set on the answer variable. The same goes for the no response. We will set the variable, it will be false. Oops. Okay. So answer false. Okay, so we got the answer. Once the answer, we received the answer, we need to go to this block. In here, we will need to connect default from both dog scratching and dog vomiting JavaScript steps into our run questionnaire. So basically, what's gonna happen is once we determine the intent, we will go into the corresponding JavaScript block, and we will set the questionnaire variables value. So for the scratching, we will set the scratching question set with the possible outcomes. In case of dog vomiting, we will set corresponding questions with the corresponding outcomes. And once the questionnaire variable is set, we will go to the questioning phase, where we take all those questions and ask the questions until we reach the final question. Once we reach the final question, we will figure out what is the solution, and then we show the solution to the customer, and that will be the end for that questioning and solution providing process. Now, the most interesting part that we need to add is this functionality that will run actual questioning and figuring out the answers. Already have the code prepared, and we will go for it, and I'll explain what it does and how it actually works. So the very first thing that I want to tell is I split the code into smaller functions, so it would be easier understand by the name what is happening, what that function is doing. There's not a lot of code. Once you see the explanation, you will understand how it works. So the very first thing that we want to do once we enter this step is we want to check if we need to record the answer. And obviously, if it's a first time after setting the questionnaire, we reach this block, we will have no answers. So we check this by the question index. So if the question index is less than 0, we know that it's a very first time when we went from, for example, dog scratching to this block or from dog vomiting to this block. And we know it because in here we set the question index -1. So first time we know that we did not have any answers, so we just return stop these blocks, stop with parts execution, and that's it. In case we already ask a customer a question, and that would mean that we recorded the customer's response, we also need to record it in our variable. So we would know how to correctly select the solution for his problem. So in this case, we will get the question for which we received the answer. Then we will check if the answer was positive. If it was positive, we will update our questionnaires answers by doing bitwise operations. I'm not go much into the detail, like how it's being done and how it is working. If you want to figure that out, you can just Google it. It's nothing special, but it will help us to more easily find the solution without needing to write a lot of if conditions and so on and so on. So if it was a positive answer, we will set a positive bit, basically setting a 1 in our answer bit, and if it was negative, we will set a 0. And that is more or less the thing. So yeah. Okay, so these are not needed. So that's for the recording answer part. Can hide it for now. Now, next thing, once we figure out if we need to record the answer or not, we go to this check, which checks if a question, like if we reached the last question. If it's a last question, then if we got the answer for the last question, then we need to figure out what is the correct solution and go to the show solution, this show solution block. If it's not the last question, we want to go to the next question, get this next question, and go to the ask question part. Now, how do you figure out if we reached the last question? Well, we figure out by basically checking how many questions we have and what is the index number of the question that was already asked. If the index number of the question that was already asked matches the total number of questions, then we know that we already reached the last question. And if not, then we are somewhere in between the first question and the last question. The next question selection basically increases the index number by 1, and that's only thing it does. And get question goes into our questionnaire, into the question list, and selects the question by the index. And the get outcome basically does the search on questionnaires outcomes and tries to match the answer bit value with the outcomes bit value. And once the result is found, we have the outcome. And if result was not found, then it means that we need to default to the case where we don't know how to handle the issue of the customer and he needs more support. And as I mentioned, regarding those bit values, we basically, for each of the question, we say like, okay, so this is the first question. If a customer answers positively, then we will set at this position 1. For the second question, if the customer answers positively, we will set also 1 at the second position. As you can see, positions are indexed from 0, so 0 based ones, and so on. So once you end up answering all the questions, you will have a similar number, which will represent all the answers to the questions. Either they were positive, negative. Basically, looking at this number, you can say that, okay, so first question was answered positively, the second was negative, third was positive, fourth was negative, fifth was positive, and the last 2 were negatives. And you can see the same thing with this serious illness. First positive, negative, negative, positive, negative, and positive, positive. So yeah, and you can see like in here we are reading like from first question to the last, from left to right, but once we are writing these bit values, we write them from right to left. And yeah, so we already have questionnaires, we have our code that is running these questionnaires, we have question asking block, we have outcome, basically solution showing block, and it should work as expected. So let's try to run on our code. We see that we need to do some training. Okay, training was done. Let's run the chatbot and see how it works. So let's try to say my dog is vomiting. So has the dog vomited more than once in the last 24 hours? So we can see that it's already started asking the questions from this questionnaire. And let's see, let's try to target this dietary issue. So the first answer will be yes. The second answer will be no. The third is yes. The fourth is no. The fifth is yes. And then 2 no's. No. No. And as we can see, we got a correct solution. Okay, let's try. My dog is okay, and you can see that we correctly went into the intent was correctly identified. We went into this dog scratching block, and this block loaded the dog scratching related questions. And now we will go through these questioning until we reach until all the questions are answered. And in this case, let's go with the skin irritation. So yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and no. So yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And I think the last one is no. Okay, so it works. Is there anything I can help? No. And yeah, that's it. That's how we make our previous solution a lot more simpler. In fact, I think we could move these blocks into their own component and make it look even more simpler. And at the same time, this setup gives us a possibility easily add new question sets with the outcomes. So the only thing that you would need to add next time is basically copy this block, add new questions, add new outcomes, add new intent, connect the intent to this block, to the new block, and that new block needs also be connected to questionnaire, and that's it. You have new set of questions, additional set of questions with the outcomes and so on. So that's it for this chatbot. See you next time.